listening to Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma, and I'm your host, Trish Close. Julia Coney on the podcast today, and my cheeks are a little sore from smiling and laughing so much, and my heart is full. Julia is a wine consultant, wine writer, a wine consultant for American Airlines, co-host of podcast Just Getting Better, and the founder of Black Wine Professionals. Her list of talents is very, very long. I met Julia at the Women in Wine Conference earlier this year. Instant connection. Julia talks a lot about growing up in Houston and Louisiana. Her grandmother was a midwife in Louisiana, in this area where a lot of the women didn't really have any options. They couldn't go to the hospital and deliver their baby. I think Julia said her grandmother delivered 3,000 plus babies. What? She talks a lot about her grandmother, Mama Dear. Julia's actually named after her. Incredibly sweet. Julia tells me the story about how she started her beauty blog. She met a magazine editor, she says, changed her life. And then after this very successful, very popular beauty blog, she just decided, I think I'm done and I want to start writing about wine. So she did. She also talks about being a consultant for American Airlines and how she helps choose the wine and really empowers the staff to sell this wine and make it fun. And that's her thing. She wants to make wine fun again. She says, we've just made it too serious. It's too pretentious. She loves pairing salty snacks with great bottles of wine. Think pretzels and Doritos. Not kidding. And she says, if that's not your jam, that's okay. You do you. That's the whole point. Let's make it fun again. It's just gotten way too serious. I didn't realize my cup was on the low side before this interview, but after chatting with Julia, I feel full again. Lots of laughter, a lot of inspiration, and loads of joy. Here's Julia Coney.
Let's do it. Anything for you, darling.
Oh, well, thank you. It was so fun to meet you at Women in Wine. That was just what a fun day.
Yeah, I mean, it's hot, but man, I love Oregon. I love the people. Yeah, my husband sends me text messages because I went to Oregon 3 times in 6 weeks, and he went, I got a feeling you're trying to move, or Oregon loves you, and Julia loves Oregon, but you're not moving. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to Champaign with women I met. Well, I'm working there, but I'm going to Champaign Wednesday with women I met at IPNC. And we just connected. And last year they were like, we should go to Champaign. And I was like, let me plan it. And we're like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're going for 6 days.
Amazing.
We're having dinner in Paris first. And then we're going to some of our favorite producers together. Yeah.
Well, Julia Coney, it was so fun to meet you. And Oregon does love you. I want to introduce you quickly. Wine consultant, wine writer, wine consultant for American Airlines. You're also the co-host of podcast Just Getting Better. I feel like that's just like this much, though. That's like this much of what you do. You do so many things. And you're a writer. You write about wine. You write about travel. You write about food. Yes. You've been a wine judge. I mean, you do so much.
And I am the founder of Black Wine Professionals.
And
I
Black
help
Wine
people.
Professionals.
And, diversity, equity, inclusion is still very important to me in the wine industry. So
hugely important. You're based in Washington, D.C., and Houston, Texas, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like so funny. Like, yeah, when I tell people that, like, depends on the week, I have to think about where I'm going and where I actually lay my head. And sometimes I'm in Louisiana because I'm a caregiver for my 82-year-old aunt.
That's right.
So it is a lot of moving parts.
It is a lot of moving parts. And as you just told all of us, you're headed to Champaign this week with some people that you just recently connected with.
Yeah, I came to IPNC 2018. I met them. Mm-hmm. And then over the time, going back and forth and speaking, we just kind of had like, your group. You just find your people. And the ladies were like, we really want to go to Champaign. And I was like, well, I will be there already about to do a group trip. You guys, let's do a group trip before that trip starts. And that's how that happened.
I love it. You strike me too. When we met, well, we did a Zoom call, then we met officially in person at Women in Wine this year in July. And I think you get this too. You strike me as the kind of person, when you meet someone that you like, you just click with them. And then that's kind of it. Like, right? You don't need to really ask a whole lot of questions after that. You get to know each other, but it's like, you're my people. Got it. Done.
Yeah. I walk into every room And I got this from a writer named Lovey Ajayi Jones. She said, walk into a room and ask God that you meet your helpers and you meet your people. And for me, I walk into any room, and I mean, that room could be a lounge. I could walk into an airport lounge and say, okay, thank you, got my person's here. And I don't know necessarily what that means. It means that I may help them discover a wine. It could mean I give them recommendation on a book. It doesn't mean that we're going to be always best friends. It
Right.
just means I met my person for that reason.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And that happens to me all the time. I will walk into a place where I don't know anyone and I
Mhm.
have left with a connection or more.
Well, my dad used to call me a talking piece of furniture. Just put her down somewhere and she'll find her people. Ever since I was a kid, I was the same way. So it's just now I'm an adult and I'm having more fun with it.
Oh, I love that. A talking piece of furniture. I think I was a lot like that too. I was the look at me, look at me. I just came up with a dance. I just came up with a skit. Watch me, watch me. That was me as a
But I
little kid.
think, you know what I think that is, though? You're a naturally curious person.
Hmm.
And I think it's hard for a lot of people who are not naturally curious to really get that
Sure.
because it's not like you're trying to be invasive. You're just curious, right? And there's
Mhm.
one thing I have a lot of French friends that I have to dial it back when I go to France because they're just not that way,
Right. Yeah.
right? They're just, and that's fine. And so, but for me, if I can make that connection,
Hmm.
whatever that may be, I don't look at it like work. I just look at it like the gift that God has given me. And how do I use that to help somebody else?
Love it. Oh, that's so good. Where are you from originally?
I was born in Leesville, Louisiana, and raised in Houston. So I'm raised in Houston. I claim Texas and Louisiana as home. I'm from the South. Like that is like right within me. When people ask me, like, oh, where are you from? I'm like, Texas. And my husband will look at me. He was like, but you live in the DC area. I'm like, but I'm not from DC. Like, I don't claim it. I
Right.
love the people here sometimes,
Hmm.
but it's just it's a great place. I didn't expect to be here this long, actually.
Really?
To be 20 years next year that I moved, but I met my husband here, and he is a native Washingtonian, and it was the choice to for me because of my career I took on to move about, so it kind of worked for us.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
split, I mean, again, I said you're based in Washington, D.C. and Houston,
Hmm.
Texas, but you do spend, a lot of time in both of those locations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have three addresses. That's where I have three addresses for mail. It's that crazy. No, because I might go like I'm going to Houston in November, but then I'll go to Louisiana and then I'll come back to DC and then I'll go back to Houston. So it to me it seems normal
Right.
because I think I've been doing it for so long. But like I always tell people, I know when to schedule like downtime, and my downtime starts December 16th.
Oh my gosh, Julia, really?
Yeah, December 16th, all the way to February though. Think about it. I'm just having fun.
Oh,
Everybody's on a diet in January. They don't like to drink. You know how it is.
yeah.
So I take that time to actually go to the beach and take a break and just hang out.
Perfect. That's
Yeah.
perfect. Growing up in Louisiana, I mean, because my parents actually lived in Louisiana in Shreveport and then in New
Oh yeah.
Orleans for a brief little stint. What was that like growing up there?
So I went to Louisiana. I was in Houston from Monday to Thursday.
Okay.
And on every Thursday, we got in the car and we drove to Louisiana. My
Okay.
grandmother was a midwife, and we stayed until Sunday. And my mother was like, we have to help with the babies since she's delivering babies in the house that my aunt and my mother live. So every weekend I didn't go to school. Like it was be some weekends I'm like, oh, I want to stay in Houston. Maybe a friend's having a birthday party. But my grandmother delivered babies until I was 16.
Oh my gosh.
So my weekends were like homework in Louisiana, hanging out with my cousins, and then I spent every summer in Louisiana until I went to college.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
how old when you said she was delivering babies until you were 16? How old was she then when she was still delivering babies?
70s. She
Oh
stopped.
my.
My aunt, they made her stop. Like they had to make her stop. She loved it so much, but they were like, you kind of need to retire.
Yeah. No, for
Yeah,
sure. So it
yeah.
sounds like you were like grew up with and brought up by some really strong women.
Yes. And I also have to say strong women and men. I think a lot of times I talk about my mom so much because her death is so recent to me.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad passed when I was 26, so I had a long time to like do that. But my father was a U.S. Marshal, one of the few in Texas, and one of the few that was black. And my dad just really was supportive, and my uncles. So I grew up in this like very connected and family where we actually liked each other. And I have to say that because a lot of people love their family, but they don't actually like them.
Yeah.
We actually liked each other.
Mm-hmm.
And these strong women just prepared me in a way that I am so grateful for.
How
It
so?
was,
What do you mean by that?
but my mom and grandmother was like, I don't care what you do, long as you're a good person.
Mm.
Like, you know, some days you're not going to be a good person. And it wasn't one of those like being perfect and everything's perfect. It was at your core, are you a good person?
Yeah.
Are you decent?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot of like, Southern manners,
Mm-hmm.
ma'am, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am,
Yeah.
those. Yeah, a lot of
Oh
like
yeah.
the, protocol of being Southern, which is, understanding that, I could smile and be like, it's the bless your heart that we do so well in the
I
South.
know, I know. Which a lot of people, some people are like, that's the equivalent of when you say something kind of dumb and they go, "Oh, you're so pretty. Oh, bless your heart." You
Oh,
know?
bless your heart. Yes. And so for me, watching like my grandmother who started delivering babies because there was no Black person to deliver babies
I
in
wanted
the
to
town,
ask.
they couldn't go to the hospital.
Right. Okay.
So they came to the house. And just growing up with that, I'm named after her and seeing that and seeing like all my family who, especially the women, just like they just run shit. That's the only way I can
Yeah.
say it. They run it
Yeah.
and they run it well. And
Mm-hmm.
they run it, with fairness and just always been around like that. And so I come from a family of educators too. So my mom's a lot of teachers,
Okay.
principals, professors, all the that. So, books and knowledge and a thirst for knowledge was really encouraged.
That
Like we had to
ex
do book reports in the summer.
Oh my gosh. That's
And that's
horrible.
before school started applying them, but my mother was like, I'm not sending you back to a teacher and you have not learned something that you need for the next grade. You need to learn critical
Mm.
thinking. You need to read. You need to do book reports. So yes, you can play, but there's a book report due every month in this house during the summer.
Damn. Damn, mama.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
Um, well, that explains a lot about you, just hearing all of that. And very similar, grew up in the South and I love my family. You know, we're family, but we like each other. We get along. We really enjoy each other's company. But lots of very strong men and very strong women. And the women
mm.
ran the shit, especially in the kitchen, right? Like
Oh yeah.
we
Oh,
were
not in my house. The men cooked. My mother, you would not want this woman to boil you water. Oh my gosh, no. My father cooked, but also my family raised cattle. Like they have cattle and
okay.
chickens and
Yeah.
hens and rabbits and all the
Yeah.
things so the men slaughtered and the men cooked.
Wow. That's
Yeah. And
amazing.
I don't mean just barbecue, because when I have to say that, I'm like, no, I mean cook.
Yeah.
Like all the food, chicken and dumplings, everything was fresh made. We had a hot breakfast growing up every day. My dad was like,
Mm-hmm.
cereal is weekend food. That is
Mm-hmm.
not for you to go
Mm-hmm.
study with. So yeah, so in the kitchen, men they ran the show in the kitchen in
Uh,
my family.
very similar. My uncle, when we go on vacation, my uncle is the chef. He's in the
Yeah.
kitchen and hot breakfast, 100%. It's
Yeah.
grits, it's sausage,
Yes.
it's hot, right? Like, yeah, no, there's no cereal. Absolutely not.
Oh, that's weekend food.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible. And it just sounds like big family. Was it a big family?
Oh yeah, my mom was one of nine, and then her parents adopted three more.
Aw.
And so cousins, I mean, just running in and out, neighbors, everybody knew
Mm-hmm.
that was that Shade kid or that's Laverne's daughter. Like they just kind of
Oh, for
knew.
sure.
Even now, when I go to the store, see people look at me and they're like, "You Laverne's daughter, right?" Like at the store, you Laverne's daughter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. She
Yeah.
was a great teacher. We miss her. Stuff like
Uh-huh.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is Naomi's granddaughter. That was me.
Mhm.
This is Naomi's granddaughter.
You didn't have a name, but you were somebody's sibling, somebody's
100%.
child, somebody's grandchild. Yeah.
100%. So your grandmother, midwife, really in this, in a place where she was seeing mothers who didn't really have an option, sounds like, right? Like,
Hmm. And she was also seeing poor women
right,
of all
right.
races.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many babies do you think she delivered?
She delivered over 3,000. That is documented by the state of Louisiana. It's probably more because I have to ask my aunt, but over 3,000. And she never lost a baby.
What?
I have to say this. She never lost a baby. No, yeah.
What was her name?
Julia Marguerite Milshade.
Oh man, what a
Yeah.
name.
What a
Strong
name,
name.
right? Yeah, very, yeah.
Julia Marguerite Milkshade?
Mills,
Mills Shade.
Milshade, like four names.
Mill Shade. Got it.
Yeah,
Got it.
you know.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. And probably somewhat of a celebrity where
Oh, in the town.
right,
Like
right.
everybody would come over. I mean, it was crazy. Like, because as a kid growing up, I'm like, she's Mama Dear, right? She's my Mama Dear. But then when you go out and everybody knew who she was, and I was like, why is she getting all these awards? Like, why is everybody at the church honoring her? Like, I couldn't.
Oh,
It took me getting older to kind of realize and having those conversations with her about her life
yeah.
and what it meant to her to learn the technique of midwifery back then. Because
Right.
I was born in 72 at the house. So, in a home,
Mhm.
yeah, like all my siblings were born in a house. All my cousins back then were born in the house.
Yeah. I think my mom
My
was
mother would
born in a
leave.
house. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom would leave Houston. My grandmother would say, "Oh, you probably here. Come on a Wednesday." And she was like, "Yeah, on Friday I had a baby." Like, and I'm like, "What?" It's the craziest thing.
It's kind of, I'm trying to like wrap my head around this, like what your grandmother did at this time in the universe, right? And it's kind of overwhelming to think
Hmm.
about. I mean, and she really, it's like, it sounds like if she wasn't there, if she didn't have this, um, if this craft, this talent of midwifery, what would women do in this area?
It was astonishing to me, and it's really 2 years ago I had to call the ambulance because something would happen with my aunt, and I was like, okay, this is above my control. I need to take her to the hospital. The EMTs walk into the house, and I see the lead guy, and he's just looking around, and he goes, "Your grandmother delivered me in this house." I said, "What?" He said, "This Miss Shade's house, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, I was born in this house. It's a room back there." And I was like, "Yeah, that's where I stay in that
Oh my
room back there."
gosh.
He knew. In another person, he was like, "Yeah, I was born here." They were like, "Oh, your grandmother Miss Shade? Oh yeah, we heard of her." And I'm
Wow.
like,
Wow.
"Okay." I have a patient right here. And they were like, I said, "This is her daughter, a baby daughter." They were like, "What?" And then it became, "Oh, we got to take care of you." Oh, it was beautiful to watch because
Sure.
you see the legacy that she set. And
Mhm.
like the EMT can just walk in the house and go, "I was born here."
That makes
And
me
he said that
emotional. That
he
makes
was
me
like, he
emotional.
said, "My parents brought me by when I was a kid to show me where I was born." Because I was like, "Okay, where was I born?" And he was like, "Here." He said, "My parents couldn't afford to pay the hospital.
Right. Yeah.
So he was born."
Wow.
Yeah.
That chokes me up a little bit.
It
Do you
was crazy.
when you're in that house with your aunt, do you feel is there just like a certain kind of energy in the house?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an energy, a very strong energy of power of like, we don't take no. We don't say no. Like we just kind of like, if no means not right now. That's how I was brought up. So
Yeah.
no, a no is a not right now. And you just feel this energy when people stop by because that house has been in the community since 76.
Right.
So, and
Wow.
before that, there was another house behind it. And that's where I was born in a house behind it. So it's a lot of like energy in that area because so many people are connected from the church
Sure.
to the school system. Like it's just, so many people.
Incredible. Incredible. Thank you for sharing that about your grandmother. It just
I
sounds
don't think I
like,
ever said that on a podcast. I think this is the first time I ever talked about her in that way.
well, thank you for doing that. And I think I am I had amazing grandparents and my grandmothers especially, and I will always have a very soft, special place in my heart for grandmothers. I think they're amazing. If they're good,
Hmm.
they're
Yeah.
amazing. They're
Yeah.
amazing. You mentioned the men cooked in your family. So it
Yes.
sounds like, and I know this is, kind of food is very much at the center for a lot of families, but especially like Southern
Hmm.
families, it definitely is in mine. Was food important growing up?
It was everything.
Yeah.
My dad, one of the reasons we ate breakfast every morning together, and he said, "I have the kind of job I may not come home." But you think about like Sunday, but then there was Sunday suppers, right? There was
Mhm.
after you go to church, and if you didn't have a 3 o'clock Sunday service, is whose house are you going over? Our house was the house. It
Nice.
would just was that way. Our house was the house. There was a deep freezer in the garage and another refrigerator because you had
Of
so much
course.
food for everybody to come over. And I remember like being a kid and our like people were like, "Do you want to go somewhere and have a birthday party?" I'm like, our house is the best birthday party. Like my dad's making German chocolate cake, coconut cake. He's like, I mean, my birthday's December, so I mean, it is gumbo. It is everything Southern, homemade biscuits, rolls, like the very essence of Southern cuisine. So for me,
Mm.
it was like we were just at house and food was always there.
Yep.
Like, and it was always like if you have a kid at school who can't eat, like, oh no, 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 tell the parents to come over here. We got food. Like such a great seeing community. And in Houston, I grew up on, I call it the United Nations of streets because we had so many nationalities there. We had a Japanese family, a Korean family, a Chinese family, a Nigerian family, an Ethiopian family, a Mexican
Awesome.
family, and a Spanish family. So we're on the same block.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm gonna go to Miss Diaz's house and get some tortillas. And then, on the weekends, the Spanish family, the Ortegas, they literally have tapas. Like, so before all this was a food thing, I mean,
Wow.
when we're reading magazines, like, reading stuff in the New York Times and, all those crazy articles, but food is a connector and
100%.
it brings people, it either separates or bring them together.
Yep. Yep. And usually I feel like it brings people together. What an amazing environment to grow up in, right? Like food is important, but then you were exposed to all kinds of different food. And I also think that probably, I know it shaped me, right? That's my love language, is cooking for people. I love having people over and feeding them. Like, it's incredibly important.
And we used to, I don't know if they had this everywhere. We had a thing called People's Places and Things. It was like you would get a passport and you would go around like at the school and they would have food from different
Oh,
countries and
yeah.
you would get it stamped.
Yeah.
One year they had it on our block. And they saw the food. And it was so funny because like, I still remember that like this elementary school was like, no, we're having it on Thrush on the block
Love it.
because that street has all these people. And it was the school came out. It wasn't, it was like so much fun. It was an all-day event. And I think that's where I got my love of food from. Like my dad, my mom, she could be happy with a Caesar salad. Nothing's wrong with Caesar salad, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my dad was the adventurous one. When we would go to New York, I remember Dean and DeLuca would not deliver to Texas they didn't have a catalog like they had, later on. We would go to New York, go to Zabar's, Calistan. My dad would like box up all the spices.
Yeah.
And we'll come back and we'll cook with him, and that was the way, he showed love. And I was Mikey. I eat anything, still do. And he was the one that told me liberated Black people go to Paris. And that's where my love of France came from.
Wow.
And a lot of people equate it to Louisiana, but he equated it to James Baldwin, Eartha Kitt, Josephine Baker. And to me, being a young girl, when French came into the elementary school I had in the 5th grade and then going to the 6th, instead of putting me in Spanish, they put me in French.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it's funny because I couldn't understand. Half my cousins in New Orleans, that French. I was like, what are they saying? Because it was so different.
It is
by
different.
the time I really understood like French language. Yeah.
We were Charleston, South Carolina. My parents live right outside there now, but we would go visit all the time. And one year I brought my husband with me and he went to a fire station because wanted to exchange a badge. And he was talking with like the chief or the captain. He goes, I can't understand that guy. I
understand what he's saying. Yeah.
I'm like, and my grandma goes, oh, that's Gullah. They're speaking Gullah. Yeah. And it's just, everyone there, Black, white, when you grow up in this area, that's how everybody talks. And they're really hard to understand, even if you're Southern. So I get it.
Yeah. So it was a great childhood.
Sounds like it, man. Yeah. Sounds like it. Being that you come from a family of educators, I saw that you went to, you studied English Lit.
Yes.
So, I mean, obviously writing has been, well, in the summer book reports, good grief. Writing has been in your blood. Sounds like forever.
I've kept a journal since I was 5 years old. I still have every one of my journals.
Stop, really?
No. Yeah. Yeah. The ones with the little lock that was pink. Yeah. And then you get older and you're like, okay, I like this paper over this paper,
Oh, yes.
And but I'm still A
And
journal person.
lined paper. The paper has
Has
to
to
be.
be lined.
What
Has
crazy
to be.
person can write in a journal that's unlined paper?
When I see people with unlined paper or dot, I can kind of work with you on graph, but
Yeah.
on dot, I'm like, ooh, this is work.
Yeah.
This is, I need, sometime in a dot, if it's a beautiful notebook, I will literally take a ruler and make some lines, like in the first 20 pages, because I'm like, I don't want to mess this up. Like, yeah.
So what did you see yourself doing after, studying English lit, you graduate? What did you see yourself doing? What did you want to
Oh, I
do?
thought I was going to law school. I absolutely thought I was going to law school. And my dad was like, you should probably work at a law firm to see if that's what you really want to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I worked in law firms. And when I took the LSAT, I was like, you should not be taking this test. I thought it on the test day, but I was like, oh, I'm doing everything to go to law school.
Yeah.
And the one school I wanted to go to, I got waitlisted. And my mother was like, that's not a wait list, that's a sign.
Yeah.
And I started working in a really great law firm and really great people. And I woke up one day and said, okay, do I want to apply or do I want to go live on the East Coast? Because I was like, I grew up in Houston. I always lived in the East Coast. I went studied abroad in Paris. And I was like, do I want to just stay in Houston? And the law firm was like, they got an opening in DC and they got an opening in New York. So I went to New York one weekend and was like, yeah, I'm a full adult right now. Nope, can't. This, I'm not giving up my bed. I'm
Full
not giving
adult.
up. Like, it's just some things I can't do. And the realtor I was looking at apartment said, hey, you should go to DC. You can get here anytime you want, see anything. And the next weekend, I flew back to Houston, flew to DC. When I left DC, I had an apartment. And I had to come tell the law firm, can y'all transfer me?
Wow,
And they went,
really?
sure. And that was January of 2005. And then I moved March of 2005 to
Wow.
DC. Not knowing one person, like not knowing anybody, was just like, is something in DC that just made me want to be here. Like just being down, I was living downtown. I was exploring all the East Coast on the train, just places I just couldn't go without flying. And I love that, right? Just let's hop on a train this weekend. And, even when I was at the law firm, I was like, this is great. I'm enjoying it because I worked on the tech part of it. And I think that's where I really shine. It was working in the intellectual property, not necessarily trademarks, but infringement on trademarks. And
Ooh.
it was fascinating from start to finish. Went to trial in 9 months, rocket docket, very amazing. But I had learned in Houston all about wine because I work for lawyers. And I always say lawyers drink the best. I will say this, they drink the best.
Yeah.
That's their test, right? Because doctors have a higher point to me. When you say, oh, you could say, oh, I'm an ophthalmologist. That's great. But he's a neurosurgeon. Kind of like there's a little kind of like he
Yeah.
has people's brains, right?
Yeah.
Just nothing wrong with the ophthalmologist. I like mine. But they drink. And so their thing was drinking great wine. And I was the beneficiary of many great wine
Nice.
dinners, many great gifts, trips, really great. And that is where I found wine because my family doesn't drink.
Right. So you're in DC, you're doing this
Mhm.
job. It sounds like something was pulling you though, as far as
Yeah,
like,
I love my job. Like
mhm.
some people like go, I hated it sometime when I only had 2 hours of sleep and we were in trial. But the majority of the time, I got to go to Tokyo. I got to work in Taiwan. I experienced life. I got to go to, Prague and work. I had some great experiences. And my oldest brother passed away in 2006, right after I moved. And, they were great. My job was great. And one of my coworkers, Jennifer, said, have you always been a writer? Like every time I talk to you, you got like all these books and you're always talking about this. And I was like, yeah. She's like, Howard University has a weekend workshop and they're having all these editors of magazines come. You should go.
Wow.
I said, okay. I don't have anything to do this Saturday. Let me just go. And I go to this workshop and it's a woman who's from the area named Teal Williams. It was the editor in chief of that time of Travel and Leisure, ESPN magazine, National Geographic. They were all at Howard at this workshop. And she was, I knew who she was. I was like, oh, you're Tia Williams. You're one of the beauty editors. You used to be at Elle magazine. And
Okay.
she said, yes. And she was signing her book. And she said, what do you do for your skin? I said, well, I go to Paris every year and get a facial. She looked at me and was like, no, seriously. I was like, no, seriously. I go every year and get a facial in Paris and I do all my beauty shopping. And she said, you should start a blog.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And in my mind, a blog was at that time, if you remember the Washingtonian girl, like at that, like she was the girl she was having affairs with all the senators
Oh,
back then. And like, and it was, and I think it was brought on like one cat. It was like one cat was big then. And I said, I'm not going to do a blog, because that's all I knew. That's
right.
all I knew was like, why are we saying, she was like, you control what you write. I have a blog. And I said, oh, okay. And that was the February 2006.
Okay.
And she emailed me at the end of February and said, so where's the blog? Like, I want Black women to know that there's this Black woman flying to France, going to facials and buying beauty products. And I want to write about you. And I said, okay. And I said, I'm going to name it what my grandmother would say about everything she loved. Oh, that's just all about the pretty. Oh my God, that's just all about the pretty.
Oh,
It's so Southern, right?
so Southern. I love
So Southern. And the
all
other word
about
was
the pretty.
beautimous. And so
Oh,
I called my mom.
Beautimus. Hmm.
Yeah, beautimous, beautiful and glamorous. And I said, what do you should name it? And she said, all about the pretty. And I was like, a Southern girl's guide to all things beautimous, all about the pretty. And I told Tia, and I wrote a blog post how I spent my Saturdays in Houston and Neiman Marcus drinking champagne and beauty shopping with Miss Juanita. And she put it on her blog, and my life literally changed the next month
Yeah.
because so many magazine people and they were all very curious in about this girl who was like, and I was really traveling single with my friends, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to Italy and drinking wine, but I'm stopping here, and I'm going to Santa Maria Novella, and this is what I'm buying.
Yeah.
And this is in 2006 when it wasn't like it is now. And I met a bunch of amazing women who were all writing about beauty that we all had day jobs.
Wow.
We were all had, and it changed my life.
I'm
So to
assuming
me, Tia Williams changed my life.
amazing, but I'm also assuming you offered something that there wasn't a lot of that out there, right? Your
No,
story, your beauty practices, that wasn't kind of mainstream. So you were offering up something very different, very unique.
yeah, and it was all my own money. So it wasn't like
Yeah.
anything was happening. It was more like, this is how I shop. This is what I do.
Yeah.
And it was, Paris is always a love language, France. And it was like, oh, these are the products I get. And at the end of 2006, I get an email from Bobbi Brown Cosmetics. And they said they wanted to send me products because they were like, you talk about Bobbi Brown's makeup so much. We want to send you things. I thought it was a joke. So I gave them my work address because I'm like, this is weird. I
Yeah.
don't know. And a box shows up. And I mean, it was a box of products, right? Like, who? And I was like, what is this? And I emailed Tia and she was like, oh, that's what they wanted you to talk about it. They wanted as a thank you and everything. And I said, okay. And I wasn't used to that. And then in 2007, I started going to Fashion Week, and it's because a woman at the time, her name is Heather Park. She worked at MAC Cosmetics,
Hmm.
and she wanted to get all the beauty girls backstage because she was like blogging about beauty is the future. Like these girls love product, they love it, and I was like, well, I'm a skincare junkie. I mean, I like blush and I like lips, and
Yeah.
I don't do anything too crazy. Give me a good concealer on a good day,
Yeah.
and that just changed my life to where in 2008, Women's Wear Daily said All About the Pretty was one of the top 10 beauty blogs on the internet. And that
Julia.
just,
Oh my
yeah, it went, and when I
gosh.
tell you it went crazy, the, I remember I just started dating my husband and I was like, this blog is getting busy and I'm busy at my day job. So it wasn't like, they knew I was writing about beauty, but they didn't know, like, I work for lawyers. They didn't care.
Hmm.
And it came a point that I remember in January of 2010, I was so busy. I probably was doing 100 hours a week between a blog and work. And I would go to New York, take the last train that was midnight, come back from the last train into DC, go into the office, take a shower, and work because I had wanted to go to a launch event.
Right.
And my husband, he went, you can't do that. Like, you can't get this up. Like, you have to decide. And in September 2010, I decided I want to try freelance. And I was like, well, I can always go back to a law firm. That's what I know I can do.
Mhm.
And it wasn't that I hated my job. I was just like, I like this other thing more.
Yeah. Well,
And let's see.
clearly
And here we are
you were
14.
good at it. You're good at it.
Here we are 14 years later. Like it's still kind of crazy.
Well, when did wine enter your world? I mean, I know it's always been there, but writing about it, because you were writing this blog on beauty. So when did the shift happen, you think?
Well, it started in 2014 or 2015. I interviewed Olivier Polge. He created Flower Bomb, the fragrance. And at a lunch, he had me smell champagne and said, what fragrance does it remind you of? This particular champagne, it was Ruinart Blanc de Blanc. Which one does it remind you of? And I didn't know champagne like I know it now. Like it was,
Yeah.
And I said, Anik Goutal Eau de Hadrian. It is the chamomile. It is the lemon peel. It is. And he was like, are you sure you want to stay on beauty? Like, he was like, are you sure? Because you have like this nose for wine. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, it's like me and nose. We just train ourselves. And I said, okay. And at the end of 2015, I had a hysterectomy. Mm-hmm. And I was home and I never forget, I was like, do I really want to be a beauty person or editor at that time, beauty writer into my 60s? That's how far I kept thinking.
Okay.
And my mom was visiting and taking care of me. And she was like, well, you could be Dorothy Gator. You could be the next Dorothy Gator, because she knew how much I love Dorothy Gator writing and everything. And I was like, yeah, I love Dottie and John. Everybody called them that. But I didn't work in wine. Like, I was like, oh my gosh. And she said, well, maybe you should, because there's wine all over this house. Like, it is everywhere. It's bottles and boxes keep coming every day. And there are wine books everywhere. And I said, okay, let me think about it. And then over the holiday, I said, okay, my beauty blog will be 10 years in March. I'm going to take my beauty blog offline in April. And I'm going to be a wine blogger. And I started researching wine bloggers. And I just was cold emailing wine bloggers.
Love it.
And trying to find podcasts.
Yeah.
And then I heard about this wine bloggers conference from a wine writer named Catherine Todd. And I went to that conference in August 2016. And I just started writing about wine. And it was, to me, that's the next evolution. It was, okay, I'll take some writing courses, literary nonfiction writing, food writing classes. I'm in DC. There's so many classes.
Right.
And that's how I started writing about wine.
So it just, I mean, I'm going to stop this and I'm going to start this. Done.
Yeah, it was done. I mean, my husband was kind of like, oh, okay, amazing. She's about to do a third career at 43. So I have to say I was 43. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it.
I'm just curious, were there massive tears around the globe when the beauty blog was offline?
A lot of editors were like, we love your writing. We love how you approach people and making it fun. And like, who doesn't want to slather themselves? So like the way I just wrote about product, I love efficacy, right? But I also love what it means and how it can make you feel. Mm-hmm. And how it connects people, right? Yeah. You see a woman, she has great lip on. First thing do, oh, what's that? What's your nail color? Yep. What blush are you wearing? What? Yep. Oh my God, I love your eyeshadow. It's the same with wine, right? Mm-hmm. Oh my God, what are you having to drink? What did you eat it with? Oh my God, have you been there? Yeah. Oh, let me tell you, it's all those same kind of stories. And to me, wine just spoke to me. Like it did what beauty did. And I have to be honest, a lot of what I didn't like in beauty was a lot about makeup. I didn't like the contouring. I didn't like all the Kardashian-ish of everybody being glam. I just couldn't take it. And a lot of brands saw that was profitable. And they started really requesting that. And I couldn't write about a contour kit, because the last thing I'm going to do, spend that much time on a makeup look to go to Target. Like 100%. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And I could see maybe I didn't want to be in the beauty industry because of that.
Yeah.
Because, I just didn't like how that was. And I mean, I still beauty. I'm going to France. I mean, I got my haul list of go to City Farmer. That's still happening. My facial is scheduled. I mean, don't get it twisted. My lymphatic drainage is still happening. But it's like, oh, okay, I have to do it on the day I don't plan to drink any champagne at Dilettante or Juveniles, right? So It's all still happening, though.
Yeah. What kills me with contouring, you just said that it triggered something. You see these young girls who have
Perfect skin.
beautiful,
Perfect skin.
perfect skin. And I'm like, what are you doing? Stop.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
stop.
Or they have an 8-step routine. When I tell a lot of our friends' daughters, you don't need that. You need a cleanser. You may need some witch hazel, and you need sunscreen.
Yeah.
That's what you need.
Yeah.
Your face at 13. That's what you need.
Right.
Yeah.
And as far as makeup goes, if it takes me longer than 10 minutes, I don't want
We're
to
not
do
getting
it.
it. We're not doing it. We're not
Yeah.
doing it.
Just
Yeah.
not doing it. So when you started writing about wine, it
Hmm.
seems like, and it also seems to me, you have had chapters. You're
Yeah.
probably the expert of writing your next chapter. Because I
Hmm.
feel like there's lots of people who have a job, the same job for decades, and they
Hmm.
retire and then that's it. But for a lot of us, especially, I get antsy, right? I need to do different things. I want to
Hmm.
do different things. And you have done that. You are doing that. It's like you're like Julia Coney's chapters of her life.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I am 51, God willing, and the creek don't rise, 52 in December. Very Southern. Got to keep it Southern. And I mean, I'm thinking about 60 and not thinking about 60 like when I get there,
Mhm.
more of what I want to do when I'm 60.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Writing
Yeah.
your next chapter. I think, I mean,
Oh, I already know what the next chapter is.
what is it?
Oh, I want to be a hotelier with that focuses on wine.
Nice.
Because every major hotel does not focus on wine.
No.
I go to a lot of hotels. I'm in a lot of hotels. Their wine lists are so basic. And I'm like, no, I want to
Yeah.
challenge a hotel to have a wine list in every bar, restaurant, whatever you have, that the wine list is interesting.
I love it. So smart.
Yeah.
I love it.
So it's
Well,
still wine, but it's hotel focused.
and how did you get it? That kind of brings me to my next question. How did you get into consulting for American Airlines?
So they reached out to me because it's with the James Beard Foundation.
Right, right.
And they found me and they knew I traveled a lot and they knew they were looking for a new wine consultant and they wanted someone who wanted to do a lot of public events
Oh,
with like some of
nice.
the clients, some of the different things, lounge appearances. I like to talk. It makes so much sense, right? So just and so, but I also get to help, on board and in lounges, and I didn't want to do lounges like, oh, let me choose a wine, but I don't talk to the staff about it. I also wanted to empower the staff. So it
Mhm.
was, okay, can I empower the staff as well as put these wines in? And they were like, oh, you mean training? I'm like, yes, because you go to a lounge and you ask for a Chardonnay. Most people ask for a Chardonnay. Well, they might not have that. And most people who work in the lounge don't really, a lot of them don't know the difference.
Right.
They've never been taught. They just know this is a white wine and this is a red. But that's
Mhm.
not how people ask for wine. So I was like, let me create these little cheat sheets so they can say, hey, we don't have this, but if you want to buy a bottle, we have this, or this is by the glass for an extra charge. So people can say, oh, okay, well, I've never had that wine. Here we go. And so for me, it's not just being like choosing the wine, it's also how I'm empowering the staff.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the fun things to do. It's also going into a lounge and talking to people. Where are you going? Oh, what are you drinking? Oh, maybe you should have that with this. Oh, you have this? Oh, you should try this. And they're
Right.
like, oh, really? Because the wine person is sitting here telling, and that is a lot of fun for me. Oh, I love those days being in the lounge and just talking to passengers.
Oh, I bet. I bet. Absolutely. And you also, speaking of empowering, you are the founder of Black Wine Professionals. And
Yes.
really, I mean, and I want you to explain why you started that, but you really wanted to uplift and
Yes.
empower Black professionals in this industry.
Yeah. And also help them get jobs and you know, I did that. I started in 2020, like a lot of organizations started. And, I work with a lot of also the other organizations. So I support a lot of other ones as well, as not just mine.
Right.
And I wanted something other than just, hey, we can give you a scholarship, which is great. That's wine education is very important to me.
Mhm.
But also, if you needed somebody quoted in an article, you have a new go to because it was always the same people quoted in the same articles. And I'm like, no, no, no. I know wine directors who should be quoted. I know this person who should be quoted. Adding that, also bringing people who want to get into wine writing. How do we do that? How do we get people paid through this database?
Yeah.
And so that's really what it is. It's really empowering people to say, hey, Oh, sometimes I'll get an email like, this job hasn't been posted on Wine Jobs yet. Do you have anybody on your list? Hold on. Let me go through the list and let me think. Okay. And then connect them. Whether or not it works or they get the job is not the point. The point is now they have a new connection that they might not have had.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Did you
And
also,
sometimes it turns into jobs, right? It
yeah.
turns into both. But yeah.
Did you also sort of, were you looking around going, I don't see representation. Representation is so huge to me. That's why I like to pull in women in wine, for instance, right?
Well, I noticed too, as media, I was going on these media trips to wine regions and I would be the only person and I would get all the invites. And finally I was like, I literally can't go. Like, who are the other people? And they were like, some of the people were like, we don't know any other Black people. And I was like, oh, okay. Now here's the list of the writers. Like, here, drop this person. Here's somebody who does content creation for you. Here's a person. So for me, it was, how do I help people get their foot in the door?
Yep.
And that has been, beautiful. Like sometimes I'm like, hey, have you heard about this trip? And people are like, yeah, they are asking me, I am going. So to get those emails, to get the text, like, thank you, you mentioned my name to this person, and now I have a meeting with them. That to me is what it's about, bringing people in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, helping people up, right? Just like making connections.
It's a hand up, not a hand out.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I want to get back to American Airlines really quick. How the process of choosing and picking wines, and I guess explain this to me. These are wines, you're helping put wines in the lounges on the list for travelers, right?
Yes, and on the plane.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when I'm on American Airlines and I'm looking at this wine list, I will forever think of you if I'm on an American Airlines flight.
The people take photos of the menu and send it to me and tell me their favorites. People I've met like in the lounges is really sweet.
That's cute.
And for a time, my photo was on it, and that just brought a lot of people. And I would just get these random DMs on Instagram, like, "Oh my God, you're on! I follow you." And it's been one of the greatest thing because it's working with a food company. I mean, organization James Beard. I mean, you can't get any bigger and better than that. And it's just been a lot of fun. It's also, when you think about how much stuff go on a plane, it made me really appreciative as a traveler.
Yeah.
To understand what happens if there's a storm in one city and that plane has to turn it around and get out of the city it landed. It's just, sometimes things don't make it on the plane, right? And I know we as people, we want everything to work properly, but that's not the way life is. That's not how it is. It is just, the volume. And you see people, like I'll see people and I order wine and I'm sitting next to them and I'm like, oh, well, this wine, the white wine, it actually goes with the cinnamon crackers and the red wine goes with the pretzels. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, let's try to taste this. It's just become fun.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about this at Women in Wine. That is a big deal for you. We need to add the fun back into drinking wine. We've made it too serious. We've made it a job. It feels like, right? And it needs to be fun again.
And we can do this. And I know the wine industry is slow to change. My gosh, it's like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
We can do this. All you have to do is decide you're going to do it. Doesn't take, it takes an act of Congress just to make it fun when you want people to buy stuff. It's kind of like I was reading the recent article with Eric Asimov about young people drinking wine. Yeah, they might not be drinking the wine that I started with, but they are drinking wine.
Right.
And so for us to think they aren't just shows the lack of, maybe they just don't, they saw their families make it so pretentious. They saw somebody at a restaurant just overdo it and they were just like, I don't want to do this. And we can make it fun.
Yeah.
I mean, my wedding anniversary was last week and one of the wines we had was a Scarpa 2010 Barbera. And you know what I had it with? I finally found them, the Old Bay goldfish crackers. That's what we had it with.
Yes. Oh man, that sounds amazing.
And then I'm like, I should have saved some because they have Frank's Red Hot, goldfish crackers. But if you present wine in that fun way, people, it takes the pretense out of it immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also too, we are faced wine consumption is down. And
Hmm.
I hope the listeners understand. I'm not trying to push people to drink and drink more and drink lots of wine. Wine is such a beautiful thing. It's not, I don't look at it as this alcoholic beverage, which it is. It's connected to families. It's connected to people in the vineyard. It's connected to farming, working,
Climate.
climate. It's connected to so many things. And it's like, I want us to look at the big picture when it comes to wine consumption.
Well, I also think if we let consumers know it's an agricultural product,
Yes.
just like your orange, just like your apple, if
Yes.
we let them know, like, hey, it's a plot like of land,
Mhm.
we could do this. We could do it. We just have to do it now. We can't be like, what's going on in 2025? It's not, no, right now.
Mhm.
And not like you say, overconsumption. It is sitting down. It is, if you think about what Karen and Kimberly and Gino are doing with Come Over October. Like, hey,
Yep.
let's come together. Let's come as I learned about wine through Texas barbecue. That's how I came into it. It was a barbecue at my attorney's house. He pulled out some fancy wine. I drank it. I was trying to figure out how did they get cherries in the wine because the cherries with the ribs and the brisket brought this Cabernet, from the 90s. Like I was like, oh my
So
God,
good.
I love this, right?
Yeah.
And if we get more into that, then we'll have a great time.
For sure. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
also about sharing, and it's about drinking
Mhm.
and eating with intent and bringing people to the table and talking about like, oh, sniff this and I mean pairing, a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't buy into that." That's totally fine. You don't have to. Like you can drink whatever you want with whatever you want to eat. I just think I agree. There's too many rules. There've been too many rules and we just need to knock it off.
It's too many rules. We need to knock it off. But also, I think if we make the pairings fun,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
More like, like anybody knows me, know I love caviar. Just my
Potato
thing.
potato
Potato
chips,
chips, yes. And I
creme
mean,
fraiche.
yes. And here's the one I do that's fun: Doritos, creme fraiche, caviar, blanc de noir, either one, perfect.
Right.
Yeah, like you would get more people because then it's kind of like I did this snack pairing in Aspen with Eric Siegelbaum, and we paired, combos pizza, the combo pizza
Oh,
with a
yeah.
frappato from Planeta, like, and people were like, oh my God, make it fun. It was
Yeah.
it was so much fun to see people go, oh, like because they were like, oh, this snacks, yeah, have it with your snacks, as the kids say, girl dinner or
Uh-huh.
TikTok girl dinner
Uh-huh.
thing,
Yeah.
have it,
Well, it always reminds me of the movie Sideways when he's drinking that coveted bottle of wine with a
Mhm.
cheeseburger in a styrofoam cup. And it's like, yeah, cuz it's not that big of a deal, guys. Like it doesn't we've made it so crazy and pretentious like you said, and it doesn't have to be that way at all.
I've watched my friend in Houston, Dolores. She pairs really nice red wine with crushed orange soda and call it sangria. That's how she makes her sangria. And you'll look at the bottle and go, maybe we should just have it by itself. And she's like, no, whole thing in a pitcher, whole thing of crush, sangria. We're done. Let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, her parents were restaurateurs, and she's like, yeah, but it's easy, It's more than just with pizza, right? Like you said, is it in a styrofoam cup? Is it in a solo cup? Like, how do we just take the pretense and just make it fun?
Yeah, for sure. There's
Yeah,
a master of wine I've interviewed before, and he said if we're trying to sell wine, then just let people drink it however they want to drink it.
exactly.
If it means adding fruit juice to this, 1990 blah 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 whatever, then let them do it. Just let them do it.
Yeah, and I don't get into if people want me to talk pairings, I'll do pairings.
Yep.
That's about it. But I'm a snacker and I'm a salty, savory snacker. So I'm always
Amen.
going from there first, right? Don't really think about sweet as much. But that's what I do. And so for me, I'm just like, no. And I've been at parties and pulled out wine, and poured it into a solo cup, and everybody go, they're gasping at the wine lady. I'm like, do you actually think I'm gonna bring a glass outside?
Right. Get out of here. Hit the road.
Here, we outside the backyard. Everybody's in flip flops or barefoot. Why would I bring a piece of glass out here? No. And they just watch it, and you can see. I'm like, it still tastes like wine.
Uh-huh.
At this, still tastes like wine.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. You are so fun. I just love you. And I was just thinking, I bet when you show up to a party, people are like, "Oh, thank goodness Julia's here."
Here's the thing. I've had so much death in my life of my family members who I love and like that when I go to a party or when I always say I woke up today on the right side of the ground. And I'm going to, does that not mean it's challenges? Of course it's challenges. Everybody has a challenge every day. Some days it just sucks. But more than that, it doesn't. I have a roof over my head. I am blessed. And so I go from a place of gratitude. And with that, I can change anything I think. Now, have I been like, oh my gosh, I can't believe another email. Oh my God. Yes, we all do it. It is what it is. Do I have to sometimes schedule rest? Yes, I have to literally put it on my calendar. But that's my life right now, and I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to be like, Lou Rawls said around groovy people. And if I can be around groovy people, and sometimes that groovy person is myself, and it's just me, myself, and I. Sometimes it's my husband, but I'm my favorite person. I'm my favorite person. And I can be home with wine, Netflix, some books. I'm good.
I love that.
Everything else will work itself out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful philosophy. I want to wrap up, but I do want to ask you about your podcast.
Yes.
Getting better. And you co-host this podcast with a good pal of yours, right?
Yes. Michelle Williams, who's also a wine writer.
Right. Exactly. And you guys tackle all the subjects. I mean, and it's really a space where women can feel heard, seen. It's inspiring, but there's nothing that you guys, nothing is off the table,
No.
right?
It's really, we say like 35 plus, and it's because there's a lot of changes women go through the older they get. And no one's been talking about it. And I even talked to my aunt. I'm like, you guys failed me about this perimenopause, menopause, and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
I said, and also there's an age issue where everybody thinks you have to accomplish something by 40. Like you have to be under the 40 and under 40 list and all these things. And I hit my stride at 43. I found a career and group I actually love. I love the wine industry. And so for me, it's like, well, I'm not riding off into the sunset. Like I'm just not in going back. I mean, I started roller skating at 51. It's been so much fun, right? It's been a great hobby. I'm going to a big skating thing in Barcelona next year. I am like, middle age is not middle dead. Like, and so I'm not gonna, so we talk all about that, and we talk about books, and we do a toast at the end of each episode. And because like we're toasting to just getting better. And every day, how are we just getting better? And that statement is for men or women, or people who don't identify as either. Literally, how are you just getting better every day?
100%. I used to tell my reporters that in the newsroom. They had a rough day, their story fell through, and they just kind of went home with their tail between their legs and, looking to me for some kind of advice. And I said, just do better tomorrow. Just do better tomorrow. Yeah. Like do better than you did today. That's all you can do.
A pitch is rejected. Okay.
Yeah.
Am I sad? Absolutely. Am I angry? Yeah. What I didn't write about, it's the internal.
Sure.
At the end, I'm still just getting better.
Yeah. Just get better. I love that.
Just get better.
I love that idea. And I also love that you guys are talking about, and I feel like there has been a shift when we're talking about women issues like perimenopause and menopause. Like it needs to be commonplace. We just need to start talking about it. It should not be this like, shh, don't talk about menopause. No, we need to talk about it because it happens to all of us.
Or like, don't talk about like, I get needles in my face. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I'm, like, oh my God, I want, if people don't want to put needles in their face and fillers, then don't. Like if you want a great doctor in Houston, I have one for you. If you want a great doctor in DC, I got one for you. I think silence has hurt people so much, and staying silent does not help anyone in whatever context that is. So for me, it is being open. I can be openly private, as I like to say, about things, but it is getting older is a gift. I mean, my dad never got to meet my husband. My mother loved my husband. I see my husband miss her like I do, right? So getting older is a gift. My mom didn't. She was 78. Like my aunt's older. So for me, I'm watching her, and we've always had a great relationship. So to me, if I can be there and help and watch this and think about aging as the gift it is, because I'd rather be here, I'm telling you, like, than the other side of the ground. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna keep talking about it.
Love it. Well, I'm glad you are talking about it. I'm listening. How's that?
Thank
I'm
you.
listening.
Yes, thank you.
I want to wrap up and get to the final three, which I've asked
Yes.
you these questions, but at the
Yes.
Women in Wine conference, but not on this podcast. Best advice you've ever been given?
We are all blessed to be a blessing. That was my mother saying, we're all blessed to be a blessing. I think a lot of people don't think when you smile at somebody at the store, that's not as big as somebody donating money or help or anyway. We're all blessed to be a blessing. Just find your way to be a blessing.
Mm-hmm. Works with kindness, right? Acts of
Works for
kindness.
kindness. Acts of kindness.
Being kind is, someone told me it doesn't cost anything to be kind.
Doesn't cost anything. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. What's your happy place?
A beach with a frothy beverage and a lot of books on my Kindle. That is my happy place. A beach with a frothy
Zero hesitation in that
Zero.
answer.
Like the beach is my happy place. That's where I go in January. I go in January to the beach. I have a Kindle full of books. I'm at the beach at 8 a.m. I am that person. I am there until like 5 or 6. Go in, take a shower, order room service, go to sleep, do it again for 5 straight days. Don't ask me to do anything. Yeah, I'm a beach person. I need to be around water. I could sleep all night. So yeah.
Do you have a favorite beach?
Poipu Beach in Kauai, Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, with my friend Erica, and just when I go to Hawaii, I sleep like somebody's giving me something, and I can sleep 10 straight hours with like no problem. Yeah, but Kauai, specifically Kauai.
Got it.
Yeah.
I slept like that, especially as an adult, when I was in my grandmother's house. There were these beds she had upstairs. That was my room. These beds, hard as rocks, like not comfortable at all. But I was at grandma's house and I slept like a baby.
Peace.
Yeah, for sure. In all things, food and drink, what do you crave? What always sounds good to you?
Sparkling wine and anything salty.
Oh, right.
Like it could be chips, nuts, any kind of salty snack.
Uh-huh.
Pretzel, anything with salt.
I'm a truffle French fry and bubbles. Like give me truffle French fries and bubbles.
See, I don't even need the truffle French fry. I just need French fry. Any Lay's potato chips, Ruffles. I have specific ones for each chip. I am very specific about my pairing of that. But yeah, because there's a different. If you're going to drink a sparkling, there's a different sparkling you need with a McDonald's fry compared to a Wendy's fry compared to a Burger King fry. They're all different. Chick-fil-A, they're all different fries, so they need a different bubble.
I just love you so much. I love you. Now that would be fun. Having different fries in front of you, and you are picking the different bubbles that you want to.
Blanc de Blanc with McDonald's.
Okay.
Blanc de Noir with Wendy's and Burger King. And you need, in my opinion, really, really, really good rosé with Chick-fil-A. Because they're real potatoes. They're like really hefty. So think about potatoes. You need a rosé.
Okay. All right. Your brain. It never stops, does it? No.
Oh, it does. I'm in the bed. I know people, I'm usually 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I'm so my brain shuts off. I go in the room, I read a book, and lights out in 30 minutes.
I love it. Julia Coney, wine consultant for American Airlines, wine consultant, wine writer, founder, Black Wine Professionals. I am so glad our paths crossed for Women in Wine.
Me too.
You're, I hope it's okay. I'm just going to put you in my back pocket. I just feel like you're a spectacular person to know.
No, I'm here. You got the number.
I do.
You got the real number. Like, you don't have the Google Voice number. You got the real number.
Did you hear that, everybody? I got the real number. I got the digits. I got the Julia Coney digits.
Yes. Anytime. Just let me know.
Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing all of the stories. I'm going to toast to your grandma tonight.
Thank you.
What did you call her? Did she have a special name?
Mama dear.
Mama dear.
Yeah. Oh. It's like people like, I don't know, like it was like Mama dear. Like, yeah.
Oh, mine was Granny. I called her Granny. Yeah. The Southern one was Granny. The Polish German one was just, she was Grandma. But yeah, Granny. It was.
Yeah, Mama dear was, and then my mother, her grandkids call her Granny. So yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. I love it. Well, I'm going to cheers Mama dear tonight.
Thank you.
And all of the wonderful, incredible work she did when she was on this planet. I just overwhelmed with all of that.
Yes.
Again, thank you for sharing your heart. Thank you for sharing your story with me. And I just, when I see you, I light up. That's what you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thanks for being on the podcast. And again,
Thank you so much for having me.
Just love you to pieces.
So nice.
You've been listening to Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma with me, Trish Close. You can watch this podcast and subscribe on my YouTube channel. Just search Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma. You can also listen and subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts.